to another episode of MJ's Progress Not Perfection. Today's guest is Bobby, and Bobby's got about 2.5 years clean. He was a perpetual relapser. Basically, he would get a couple months clean, relapse, couple months clean, rehab visit, relapse, rehab visit, relapse. It's a lot of people's story. A lot of people have that story. Relapse is part of a lot of people's recovery process, unfortunately, but being self aware is a good thing, and that's something that he is. And it's an important thing to keep yourself in check, and we get into that a lot. We talk about a lot of things from, addiction years, some similarities we had in each other, and all the way to recovery and how we go about recovery. It's a little bit different, and it's not as standard as everybody else's, but it's not supposed to be. It's our recovery. Either way, I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to the show, though. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, man. Appreciate you having me.
Bobby, right?
Yep.
Yep. And how much sober time do you have? Or recovery time?
Right now I got about 2.5 years.
2.5. And what was like your big drug of choice?
Heroin.
Heroin. Okay. And I'm sure you didn't start with heroin.
Yeah. So it started basically like with alcohol and pain pills.
When did you really get into it? First start drinking?
I would say started maybe about 18. I'm 28 now. And then I got into pills probably about 20. And then once I got into pills, that really took a hold of me and led me down that dark path. And for years, man, all I could do was accumulate 3 months at a time of sobriety without relapsing. And for years, that was just my cycle until this time. And I'd done a self-inventory, checking myself, and realized if I want things to change, it's got to change within myself first. So that's where it all started.
Yeah, definitely. So what was it about alcohol that it only lasted 2 years? Like, some people, they go a lot longer with drinking before they get into pills, but it seems like you started drinking at 18, and then within 2 years you were just like over it and moved on.
Yeah, so it was basically like I'd be around my friends and we would drink, and then some years went by, 2 years, and got offered some pain pills. I took them, and then I realized that my dad, he was an addict as well for most of his life, and he had prescriptions, and basically music influenced me a lot to go down that path by hearing what they're saying, and I took everything to heart, as you shouldn't. And so I would just basically steal my dad's pills, and that's how it was for years until he found out, and then it was on to the next thing, the next person I could get it from.
No, even before you even got into pills, with drinking, did you ever have any like those nights or those days or those bingers that like went on for way too long that you knew you had like a problem with drinking, or was it just like feel like a party phase?
Yeah, so honestly, I didn't even think I had a problem. Like I said, at first I'd be drinking with friends, but towards the end it'd be one of those things. I'd get a bottle and just sit in my room and drink it and play video games, and didn't really think much of it until years down the line. But yeah, at the time, I didn't really think much of it. But I would go on binges of days of drinking, waking up drinking, go to sleep drinking, and
Were you working during those times?
No, I was actually doing a little side hustle. I was selling weed. So I wasn't working at the time.
Yeah.
Living under my mom's roof, doing that, so.
Yeah, it made it probably even easier to just do that when you have that kind of like, you don't have to be up for work.
Yeah, it gave me that peace of mind.
Yeah, and when your job is just to sell some bud, then, you could be drunk for that.
Right.
No one's going to complain to HR about that.
Exactly. Who's going to say anything,
Now, what pills did you get into? Like at first? That, like, because you said, like, it was on when you first did it. Like, what kind of pill was it? Because that's what I was into.
It started with Xanax and Klonopins and things like that. I would basically, so I would just basically go for forgetting my night. So that's what every night was for years. It's just a blur now, bits and pieces remember, but I was taking those and I eventually started smoking those, and then I leaded towards pain pills after the Xanax.
Yeah, I was in the Roxy 30s
Yep.
for like 9.5 years,
Wow.
like daily. Yeah.
Yeah, I know how those are. That'll get.
Xanax would be mixed in there too. You know what I mean? I would mix the Xanax in there too. And every time I did Xanax, I got into some kind of trouble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, did you ever get, like, Xanax made me black out and, like, steal shit? Like, I don't know what it was. But, like, I'd black out and I'd steal and I wouldn't even know what I was doing. I'd come to and I'd be like, I don't, and, like, I'd be getting arrested, you know? And I'm like, I don't remember doing that, but I believe you. You know, I was a dumb criminal when I was on Xanax. You know, like, go to the closest pawn shop possible. Like, that's some dumb shit.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you don't do that when you're, like, actually thinking, you know, about consequences.
Exactly. It's all about you're not thinking of the consequences.
Did you ever get in trouble with Xanax?
Yeah, so luckily I've never been arrested. Luckily, but one of the times that I can remember, I was going out with a buddy around my neighborhood, and we was getting into people's cars just to steal their change. And like the second or third car, the cops rolled up and picked me up, and luckily I only had a little bit of change on me, so I didn't really have much, so they just ended up dropping me back off my house. But yeah, luckily I never got in a whole bunch of trouble off the Xanax besides the things that internally I've done to myself. But yeah.
Yeah, I end up having some damage to, like, my pancreas and, like, my gallbladder from, like, all of the Xanax and all of the pills and all the drinking. Like, my gallbladder, which is removed, my pancreas is still having, I'm 3 years clean from touching any of those pills, and I'm still having pancreatic attacks.
Dang.
So, and the gallbladder came out 2 months ago. So, but, you know, I didn't need to take any pain pills when I had the gallbladder out. You know? They did shoot me up with fentanyl when I told them not to.
Wow.
And I woke up high, and I knew I was high, and I called them out on it, and they're like, oh, yeah, you looked uncomfortable. And then I was like, do you understand what's going to happen to my body? And they're like, you're going to be fine. We know how to administer it. I'm like, no, I'm an addict. Like, this isn't going to, like, you just put 4 incisions in my stomach, and I'm going to withdraw. They're like, no, you're not. You said you haven't done anything in 3 years, so you're not going to withdraw. I'm like, you don't know anything about addiction then. You know what I mean? Because as soon as it was an outpatient surgery, as soon as I got to the parking lot with my wife, I started throwing up next to my car. And it wasn't like throwing up from anesthesia. It was bile. It was withdrawal throwing up. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that lasted for 18 hours. I threw up like that for 18 hours, withdrawing. Like sweat, cold sweat. I immediately went into withdrawal again. And it had been over 3 years. So I had to like hold like a throw pillow to my stomach and shit every time I would have to throw up. This way it wouldn't like rip open the incisions. You know, I didn't know, like I never had surgery before, and I called my grandma, and she's in her 80s, and I'm like, when you had your gallbladder out, how was it? She was like, oh, I was vacuuming that day. I felt great. So I was like, oh shit, okay, then it's definitely, this isn't a side effect. You know, I was like, you didn't throw up at all? You didn't throw up any bile? She was like, no, that's not good. You have incisions. You shouldn't be throwing up. I'm like, I know. I know this.
Gosh.
You know.
And that's an unfortunate thing. Like, it's almost scary to go to a hospital, have a surgery because of something like that. I mean, you just never know.
That's why the Vivitrol people, they have to wear, like, the necklace and they have to wear the bracelet saying, like, don't give me anything because I'm going to get sick because I have a shot of Vivitrol in me. Like, I have a sponsee, and he has the Vivitrol shot, and he wears that bracelet, and he wears the necklace because he's like, fuck these doctors. If they did that shit to you, they don't like me as it is from being a drug addict for so long around here. I go in there, you know, I don't know what they're going to do. I want to make sure I'm covered if they try to shoot me up, and I have my bracelet on. This way I can sue their asses.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
He's like, I don't trust that shit. He goes, even if I stop getting the shot, I'm wearing the bracelet. I don't care. I don't want them to give it to me.
No, I would too. I want to know where I can get one of those bracelets now.
You got to get a Vivitrol shot. They give it to you free. Compliments of a shot in the ass once a month.
Oh, yeah, those are nice. Feels like a golf ball in your ass. I've had one of those.
You did?
Yeah, years ago I was in rehab in Georgia, and when I was leaving, they gave me a Vivitrol shot when I left, and hurt my ass for days.
He had like a golf ball sized lump on his ass, according to him, because he's here every, he's here every day, so he would sit down for the meetings, and and I gave him a cushion for his one seat that he always sits in. This way he'd be more comfortable, because the first 3 weeks, he's like, dude, I still have a lump on my ass. I still have a lump. Like, we had to call the MAP program together for them to be like, yeah, you're good. It's supposed to be like that. Like, don't worry. How long did you get to take the Vivitrol for? Just the once?
Yeah, honestly, just once. They had it set up where I would have been able to get it back home, but I never followed up with that, so it was just the one and done. But the Vivitrol, it was amazing. Definitely something, if I was struggling in the future, I would definitely go back to it.
Yeah, appetite. He said it curbed like his
yeah.
He has the cravings. Yeah, it doesn't have like a craving to get high, or a craving to drink.
It's perfect.
So, yeah, he said that helped a lot.
That works for alcohol too, as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's especially. He actually is an alcoholic with meth. Like his drug of choice was meth, and alcohol led him to meth. And usually, when you get a Vivitrol, it kind of like steers people towards meth. But I subtly just reminded him recently that all the meth around here has fentanyl in it. So if he did relapse, he would be sick as shit from the fentanyl inside the meth. And so, luckily he is not thinking about it. He's coming here every day, sometimes twice a day.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's got like 2 months, and you know how it is early on when you're that enthused.
You need someone to lean on during that time.
Yeah, he's got a kid 2 months away from, you know what I mean, the kids do.
Oh, wow.
So, he's got, and it'll be his 5th kid, but the first one he has like custody of when they're born because of being an addiction for the other ones. So, yeah, it's definitely a good thing. So was there like an inciting incident like that caused you to go to rehab in Georgia, or is that the only rehab you've been to?
I've been to 2 rehabs. I've been to one in Georgia and one in West Palm, Florida.
Tell me about what led you to the first one then. Was that your choice or someone else's?
It was my choice. I went into a inpatient place for a detox. It was 7 days, and then my insurance, I was on my mom's insurance at the time, and that allowed me to go to a rehab out of state. So I got to pick between Georgia, California, and I think Maryland. I chose the Georgia. It was out in the wilderness. It was beautiful. I went out there and spent about 40 days. By the time I left, I was one of the leaders in the group. I done worked my way to the top and done everything I was supposed to. And then I came home from that, and I stayed sober for probably another 3 or 4 months. And what caused me to go into the rehab in the first place was obviously I knew my life was unmanageable, and I just had a son maybe a couple months before that. So I was trying to get well for him. So when it was all said and done, I left the rehab. I stayed clean for a couple more months, and then I ended up relapsing back onto heroin.
So what was the I like hearing why people relapse. I think it's important to talk about relapses for anybody because relapse is part of recovery. It doesn't have to be, but it really is a lot of it.
Yeah, so the reason for that relapse was I wasn't really in tune with my feelings or emotions. So in the past, the way I would deal with my feelings or emotions is just bottle them down and just get high. So that's one thing looking back that I never did fix in rehab was learning to accept my emotions and how I feel. And that's just, a normal part of life. I remember something was going on with my son. He had an ear infection at the time. So he was extremely whiny, and it was just a lot for me to deal with just getting back from rehab, and I didn't know how to deal with it. So that, and then all the responsibilities of coming home and, trying to put food on the table, it took a toll on me. And instead of explaining and telling people how I felt, I just bottled it in and decided to get high. And that one time led to a couple more months on the run down the road.
Now, do you live with your baby mom, with your baby's mom, or do
At the
you?
time, I was.
Okay, so at the time you were, and then you started getting high again. Is she anywhere? Anybody think about recovery? Was she an addict before? Did you guys like? Because it's weird to. It's for me. It always seems weird for like somebody in addiction to meet like a normie, and
Right.
then you know what I mean? Like, because we isolate so much that it's like kind of hard sometimes to meet somebody like regular unless like you grew up with them. That's always the exception to the rule is that person knew you as a kid and you grew up with them, so they see you for that person, not for who you are today. And when I say today, I mean in addiction. So how did you guys meet?
Yeah, so I guess she'd be part of that exception because me and her went to high school together. She lived 2 houses down from me, so we high school sweethearts. And then she went to college and then came back from college, and we hooked up a few times. And those few times is how we got our boy.
All it took.
All it took.
So okay, that makes more sense to me because I figured, that would make sense. She would come back from college, not know you were using, because when she left, you were maybe just a partier. You drank a little bit, and that was normal for 18, 19 was to go out and drink. So maybe pop a pill here and there. So that even wouldn't have raised a red flag. And obviously, if you knew you were going to go see an old girl from high school, you're not going to go and have a needle in your arm when you show up. Yeah. You're going to make sure you're high enough that your eyes are open, but like high enough that you're not withdrawing either.
Right.
And you're not going to dip out on her.
That medium.
So, yeah, I knew that high. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where like for me, I did 30s. So like every time I was going to hang out with like somebody normal from like high school or something like that, and I didn't want to present high, I would do like 130, enough that I wouldn't be in withdrawal, but also enough that like I can feel it too, like a little bit, just enough, and this way they wouldn't see my eyes being like all high, or I wouldn't be like passing out on them or something like that.
Right, you would have to come alive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then eventually you have to do that all the time. Like I feel like towards the end of addiction, it's just like you're not even getting high anymore. You're just like getting right.
Getting well, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. You say getting well, getting right. Everyone, just you do it. Yeah, you're not even like high. You know what I mean? You're like, oh no, I just feel normal now.
Yeah, just going through the motions.
But you had to get high in order to feel normal. That was like the insanity of it. It was like, I feel so bad right now that I have to get high in order to feel regular. Because I don't feel any different today than I did at the end of my addiction when I'd be high.
I swear, man.
Except I'm not like depressed and I don't want to kill myself anymore, so that's cool.
Right, I actually have control of my life today.
Yeah. Now, when you went on that second run, were you still living with her and like sneakily getting high, or because like sometimes it's easy to kind of hide alcohol sometimes, but like dope is a different story, especially now that fentanyl has been introduced to the area. Like people get high, they get high,
Yeah. So, obviously once I went to the first rehab and came back, she knew something was going on. Before then, she kind of had an idea but didn't really know. But after I went to the first rehab, I kind of put it all out there, what I was doing and what I was trying to do. So when I got home, she watched me with a close eye. I lived with her at first, and then after the first rehab, when I came back, I was living with my mom. I would just go over to see my son every couple days, and she was living with her mom at the time. So I would just come over there and hang out. But once it got to a point, once you're high so many times, it's kind of like you don't give a fuck. So I'd go over there, and she'd be able to see my eyes, be able to tell my movement. Her whole family knew that something was up. And I basically, at that point, I was pushed into a wall and didn't know what to do. So that's when I flew out to the next rehab.
So you felt like there was pressure, like, oh, they're going to catch on. I'm going to get called out on this soon. I might as well just set myself off and just admit it before someone comes at me.
Yep, I'm going to get called. I'm not going to be able to see my son. My rights are going to be taken. So I figured, let me just go handle this now and hopefully get it handled.
Yeah. Now, what made you go to Florida instead of Georgia this time?
Because so for the Georgia one, my rehab, or not my rehab, but my insurance, basically, I called my insurance and they kind of gave me the runaround of who I can go through.
That was my guess.
Yep. So then I contacted some people and I got in contact with a kind of like a marketer for rehabs in Florida. And then I got in contact with the rehab I was at, which is no longer open due to all kinds of fraud down there at that time.
Now wait, if you were down there in 2014, but you got about 2.5 years, my math tells me that we're not done with your story.
Yep,
so that was your second rehab stay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, okay, so your kid's 7 then.
He's 6.
6. Okay, yeah, Mike and
so my math might be.
No, that's fine. But still, either way, you get back from rehab for the second visit, and then how much time did you accrue this time? You said about 3 months again.
So this time, I actually, for the first time, I had about 7 months when I went home. And when I went home, it was great. It lasted probably not even a week before I relapsed back on heroin. When I got.
You had 7 months in Florida.
Yep.
But that was in a safe environment, in a halfway house, going to meetings and requirements, doing therapy, all that shit. And then you're doing sobriety every day. Then you come home. Is it people? What were you with an old friend?
Yeah, so an old friend just texted me out of the blue, one of my old dealers, and that's all it took, is I seen that, and I basically already got high in my mind before it happened, and then boom.
What did he text you?
He said, "Hey, what's up? I seen that you're home. What you needing?" Something along the lines of that, and literally that was all it took. 7 months down the drain, just from a couple days of being home.
What
my mindset was?
What an absolute shithead, though. Like,
right.
I see your home, parentheses, from rehab. I see your home, seeing if you want any.
And I thought he was the best friend for years after that.
I'm going to want to hear more about that, dude. That's for sure. But we'll get back. So, that pisses me off so much, man. At least, so I thought I was, good friends with my dealer, too, towards the end, my last dealer, because the thing is, you talk to them every day.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing? Hey, you good? All right, cool, I'll come by. And then you bullshit with them for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
you smoke a cigarette. You smoke a cigarette, you bullshit, whatever. But the difference, it sounds like, I bet you your dude uses.
Oh, of course.
Okay, so I knew that. Okay. And the reason I knew that, I knew that because only a user would do that.
Right.
A businessman who sells and doesn't use never would have brought you back like that. Like my dude, he wasn't a user. So, I called him 2 days before I went to rehab, and I was like, bro, I got to go. I got a chance to go to rehab. It's in California, and I got to go. I don't know what to do because I owe you $1,800. Because he would spot me, and then I would pay him back, and then he would spot me, and then I would middle for him, so he would take money off and all that shit.
Gotcha.
And so he was like, dude, if you come back and ask me for pills, you owe me the $1,800. And if you come back and I don't hear from you, that's what I expect, and that's what I hope for.
Wow.
And I haven't heard from him since. It's been 3.5 years. We don't talk. We just, we don't. Yeah, that's the difference between, somebody who is dealing, but actually cares and makes money, but cares.
Yeah.
He made a ton of money
in a weird way.
That $1,800 that I owed him was, let's be real, it was all juice. You know what I mean? It was all hey, spot me 5 and I'll pay you back $300. When really he got his money back at $125, and it was just the extra, juices.
Right.
So, majority of that was juice anyway, and I made him a ton of money. I found him a ton of customers, So he wasn't. That's why I think there was a human element to him with like, all right, dude, I know you've been struggling. Like, I know you've even been talking even about suicide. Like, yeah, go get help. Like, 'cause I've even and when I was contemplating suicide, who do you contemplate it to? Your dealer, who will then give you drugs to make you feel better. It's a manipulation tactic. But I wasn't trying to manipulate. He was just the only person I was talking to. I wasn't even trying to manipulate ever. He was never giving me free shit because I was going to kill myself. I was always 2 hours away when I was talking to him about that. I used to have to drive 2 hours to see him and then drive 2 hours back. And I would do that trip like 4 days a week without even thinking about it, man. That's the, and I found out I'm not the only, when I was in rehab, the one dude that was in there with me, he was driving 2 hours to sit in Baltimore and get dope in Baltimore.
Wow.
Yeah, and just like get high in the McDonald's parking lot in the truck, and then once he came to, he would drive back home again. And like that's the difference, because I never did dope, so I stuck with pills. That's why I did pills for 10 years, because I thought I was in control.
Yeah, thought you was a little bit better than the other users.
Well, no, when I always ask this question, when did you know you were an addict? Like, when did you know that you're addicted, and what was it addicted to that you were like, oh, I need this, I'm addicted to this?
It was probably heroin, and once I went through one of my first withdrawals, because at the time I didn't know what really a withdrawal was, because I wasn't super heavy into anything else before that compared to that, so it was mind-blowing.
Yeah, it is it is a totally different thing that people don't even realize what a withdrawal is, especially from opiates. Like, the movies do represent it right. The keeled over, the knees to the chest. I mean, the sweats. They don't get into how bad the bathroom stuff is ever, but but like the shitting, the disgusting shit you have to do in order to even shit sometimes. Because it's not good. It is not a good situation, man. And it's a 2-hour event once a week, that was, and you fucking dreaded it every time. Sometimes, and you're like, well, all right, well, let me get a good movie, a long movie to watch right now. It's just gonna be about a 2 to 3 hour thing,
Yeah, especially when you know it's coming.
Yeah, and it's like, all right, water broke. I haven't given birth soon. It's on the way.
Yeah.
Like, where am I making? Yeah, my one buddy is lucky. He used to, every time he did a line, he had a shit right away. He never had those pains. He was one of those people, and I've heard of, I interviewed another girl. It was actually my newest episode yesterday. She said the same thing. Every time she did a line, she had to shit.
Wow.
So she never had that problem that we had, that most addicts have with like
stomach.
That's how Elvis died, is opiate shits.
Yeah.
People don't talk about it enough. When we're growing up, we hear he had a heart attack.
On the toilet.
And that's like the joke. But no, the real situation is he was trying to push out a giant softball of shit from opiates and fucking had a heart attack. That's what really happened, and I can relate to that.
Yeah,
I was always afraid to end up like Elvis and like have someone find me dead. I'm a big dude, so like it could have happened. After 10 years of using.
And just straddle it, like, please don't let this be the last, please.
Seriously, that's all the times I thought I was going to die when I was in addiction, it was that. It was never from, like, overdosing. I thought I was going to have a heart attack, bro. And it's gross, but that was part of addiction.
Yeah, part of it.
Like, oh, man. All right, let's get back on track and with all this shit. All right, because I want to. So now this fuckface hits you up, and he's like, "Hey, man, come get high with me," basically, right?
Yep. So he pulls up, and we probably had about a 30-minute talk, and he's asking me about my rehab and how that went, and that was the end of that. And then probably not even a week later, I was back over at his house, hanging out, getting high, and that's basically where it all began. Is I would just run to his house and then go get high and just basically shut my phone off and just stay there for days. And so then it was back to that after that first time, probably a week or two later.
You'd show up for your kid when, like, you knew you were supposed to, but besides that, you weren't available. You know, your girl tried hitting you up, be like, hey, I need you to do this. Like, she couldn't get a hold of you.
Yeah, so, I mean, like, at first I was there, I was dabbling with the heroin. I'd still go see my son, but a few months went by, and I was no call, no show every time. So then then I wasn't able to see my son for probably almost a year. So when I got back from rehab, it was in September. And by a month, within 2 months later, like the beginning of, the middle of November, she basically told me that she wasn't going to let me see my son until I got clean. And I basically tried to tell her everything I could to make the situation better, and it didn't work. So months go by, I'm still getting high. It's Christmas. I didn't get my son presents, but my mom did. So I was gonna honestly act like they was from me. I said, hey, I bought our son some Christmas presents I want to bring over, and she wouldn't even let that happen. So that's basically the beginning of me getting sober, is once I realized that my life was unmanageable. I'm breaking every bridge, and something needed to change. But that was another thing. After it was all said and done, I got clean for 3 or 4 months, and then it was back to a relapse. And that's just how it was for probably another 2 years or so.
Is you would get like 3 months together, and then you would relapse again. Get 3 months clean, relapse. Every time you were getting 3 months, what were you doing to get 3 months? White knuckle on it?
For the most part, I mean, my mindset wasn't really good. I wasn't really doing anything differently than what I was before. Besides, I blocked the person's number and didn't have contact with him, and I didn't know how to get a hold of him at that point. But until he popped back up, then I would go back, and then it was always, I'd find some little way or an excuse that sounded good in my head where I could go back out.
Because he lives nearby.
Correct.
And are you like in one of those like small towns where you could easily see him like getting smokes or something like that, like at a store, like convenience store, or?
So Indianapolis, it's pretty big. So.
Oh, that's good. You're in the city. Okay.
Yeah. So I moved around a lot, but I always found a way to get to him, whether it was an Uber, a Lyft, anything.
Yeah.
I don't find that way.
Yeah, I mean, when you want it bad enough, you're gonna find a way. Let's be real. I mean,
oh yeah.
But that's the same thing for sobriety, though. Like, if you want to be sober bad enough, you're gonna be sober. You know what I mean? Yep. Like, it is definitely, you know, someone's always, you know, I've always had like the needs and wants conversations with people. Like, you know, needing to be sober is not gonna work. Needing to be sober is needing it for your kids or for your ex or for whatever. Actually wanting it is like something that you take ownership of and you work hard at it. And when you work just as hard to be sober as you did to get high, it works.
Yeah. Like, once you realize everything that you done to get that drug and you change that around for sobriety, game changer.
I used to, you know how I said I drove 2 hours to see my dude, you know what I mean, all the time. And then when I got back from rehab, I went to Cali, and when I came back to PA, I found a meeting specifically an hour away, and I would drive to that meeting twice a week. Not because it was the closest one, but just it was like my way of driving far for sobriety, like I drove far to get high.
I like that.
You know, it gave me a chance to think about shit, you know what I mean, each time, and go over. It was like, that was my meditation time, was driving, you know, like, and where you think of everything, let everything come in. I'd put the windows down, the radio off, smoke a few cigarettes, and just cruise, and just let my mind clear out, and just like start filing through and processing all the information. Like, all right, that goes here, this goes there, you know, compartmentalizing all the information I just got. And it was definitely a great way to like, do it that way because I would get so much more from the meeting because you had time to process it.
Yeah, the way home, you got the hour just to think about it.
Yeah,
That
and
makes
it,
complete sense.
yeah, I used to like walking home from meetings when I was in LA because it gave you time to think. So that's kind of where like I got that of like, you know what, I'm gonna have the windows. I'm just gonna shut up and turn the radio off and just like listen to like and that was always really good for me. Is that what the difference was for you? Was meetings finally? Did you finally hit meetings?
I did hit meetings, and so let me see where I'm at in the story. So,
Well, okay, right now, let's see. You are relapsing every 3 months. All right. Now, what's your sober date?
as of right now, it is
Yeah.
May 3rd of 2019.
All right. What happened May 2nd?
Well, May 2nd, I would say that I was in the process of trying to get into like a counselor place to talk to someone.
Give me those last couple months leading up to that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because that's what I'm curious of what that final breaking point after a month after all those relapses. What was that final couple months or last month looking like for you?
So the last month, I would say I got kicked out of, had a new girlfriend at the time, and I got kicked out of there for drugs, so I was living at my grandpa's. And my kicking point was I was taking his credit card, debit card, and just running it dry without him knowing, and my dad lived there at the time, so I kind of threw it off on my dad. He wouldn't think I would do it, but he'd more think my dad would do it, so I pushed towards that, and it got bad, man. I would, while he was sleeping, I would literally crawl in his room and get in the pants he was wearing the day before, man, and just pull out his wallet. And just once I done that for the last time, I was like, what the hell am I doing? But then one time after that, I took one of his checks and wrote a check to my dealer, and my dealer's girlfriend went to cash it. And once she cashed it, she called him, and I heard her scream, and I done knew what was up. She comes in, and obviously they know that I wrote the check and it wasn't my grandpa. Then my grandpa ends up coming over to my dealer/friend's house with my dad, and they basically sit me down and basically talk to me, and he tells me how disappointed he was in me. And I've never heard, I was always like his number one man, my grandpa. So hearing that from him, it really hit home. And then after that, I started living back at my mom's, and probably not even 5 months later, my grandpa passed away. So not being able to mend that bridge like I wanted to for years, it just set on me hard. But I would say like that was what like kind of got me to, okay, I got to do something different than what I'm doing now if I want something to change. So that was the final and last point.
So he passed right before you started like getting like doing it.
Yep. So I was starting to give him a little bit of money, and he just really wasn't showing me no love. Because I mean, who would? Your grandson, the one you love, stole thousands of dollars from you, and you're just disappointed. And so yeah, by the time he passed, I wasn't able to be able to mend it how I wanted to, and
to make official amends.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, mm-hmm. but you were sober though.
Correct. So
okay, that's good.
When I got sober. Yep.
Okay, yep. that and living amends are still a good thing to have. You know what I mean? Like there's plenty of people that I wish that they could have seen me sober. Including both my grandparents, because my namesake, I'm the fourth in my family. That's why I'm JD. Sure. And my grandfather, he drank a lot, and he quit just stopped.
Wow.
Wasn't a meeting person. He just stopped, and he kept a 6-pack in his fridge until the day he died. You know what I mean? Just to as a reminder, I don't, and he didn't care about that. But anyway, so. He didn't see me sober. I was drinking back then. I was even using back then. And that's 2012. He passed. Both of my grandfathers passed within 2 weeks of each other back in 2012.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a rough year that year. Like, grief and me go together for my story. Like, my drinking and using is rooted in grief and loss that started when I was 12, you know. So with grief and loss, whenever it happens so often, it's almost like it was an excuse to keep going. You know what I mean? With addiction. I had lost one of my best friends in a car accident in June 2012. Like, me and him were inseparable when we were growing up. Like, I mean, and I was so done when that happened, like, just emotionally broken. And then in September, another kid that we went to high school with, randomly died of a heart attack, not even drugs, but a heart attack. And then, a couple weeks, my grandfathers both got sick at the same time, both came home from hospice on the same day. And it's even crazier. My mom's dad passed away on my dad's mom's birthday on September 23rd. Yeah, so my mom's dad passed away on my dad's mom's birthday. And then my dad's dad passed away 2 weeks later on my brother's birthday.
Whoa.
Yeah, and my brother and my grandfather were closer than anybody in the family, and he passed away on my brother's birthday, and that was the grandkid out of the five of us that he was the closest with. So it's so and then Hurricane Sandy fucked up both of their houses 2 weeks later, because they lived on the shore all year round, both my grandparents. So both my grandmoms haven't lived in those houses since then. They both moved out and got other places and shit.
Holy shit, man.
So yeah, man, like, grief and loss is like part of my story, where like that was always my go-to excuse to go get high or go get drunk again. So, I can relate to that for sure. Because, like, losing anybody, especially somebody that looks highly of you.
Oh, yeah.
And then you feel like you disappointed them. That,
right,
like,
wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that hurts the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, yeah, I know exactly what you mean by that, dude. Now, what made you decide to do AA this time? Was it because of going to meetings and rehab and you kind of liked them and you wanted to give it a try again, or?
What happened was, I was basically just ready to try something different than what I was doing, and meetings seemed to work at first. I mean, granted, now I don't go to meetings, but I believe in it 110%, because I went there, and as long as you take the uncomfortable action and do it and actually apply it to yourself, then that's when it started working for me. Like, I would walk an hour one way in the 100 degrees heat just to go to a meeting, and that's when I told myself, like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and this is why I'm here.
Yeah, I've been there. The LA heat, dude. I was first sober in LA, and that was like the first 4 months of my sobriety, and I didn't have a car out there, and I was walking to a lot of meetings because I couldn't Uber everywhere, that's for sure. So I walked to a lot. It's almost like you didn't want to Uber to the ones that you could walk to, because you're going to have to Uber to the ones you're going to have to drive to. Yeah. And you want to save for those.
But I mean, like you said, when, like, one of those ones I'd take an hour there and an hour back, like the hour back, you just sit there and just go over the meeting in your head, and I basically just pick and choose, take things from it that would help me, and that's what I done. And to this day, I still think, AA and NA still have a big impact on my recovery, because things I've learned in there, little sayings or just things people would do, I still use to this day to just keep me going.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, our meeting center we use a lot of things from there. You know what I mean? It's I take my favorite parts from the meetings. It's pretty much like I enjoy crosstalk meetings. Where it's a lot of just like going back and forth and just like talking about your day and shit like that, or relating to each other. I enjoy that kind of atmosphere. So that's basically what we do, is just a bunch of crosstalk, open forum meetings.
Oh, that's cool. That's sweet.
We don't do chips or anything, because it's a pressure that sometimes it makes people fold.
Yeah,
and I
agree with that.
I have a whole thing of chips. If someone wants a chip, I have chips for them. I have plenty of chips that I've collected over the years. So like I just gave out a 90-day chip to a dude the other day, that came here and he got 90 days for the first time. And I was like, well, if you want a chip, dude, I'll grab you one. He goes, yeah, you know what? I would. So I came back here and I found one, And because some people do like that, but not everybody does. And the whole calling it out in the beginning and the pressure that, like, I thrived under it, but I'm not everybody, and everyone has a different kind of recovery.
Yeah, so, and I was scared to death, man. I was scared to death to go out there and pick up that 24-hour chip.
Yeah, that first newcomer chip, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because everyone's like, oh, what's his story? Why is
Yep.
How bad is it?
Right, I was afraid everybody's going to come up to me after the meeting, and obviously all those fears just are in your head. They're not real, so.
And they do come up to you, but like in a positive way.
Yeah, not in the way.
Like, hey, I'm glad to meet you, Bobby. Please come back tomorrow. I'll have a good night. It's really brief, and it's just encouraging to say, hey, just come back, man. Please.
Yeah, it's pleasant.
Yeah, and NA, they're gonna hug you. AA, they're gonna shake your hand. NA, they're like, nah, you gotta give me a hug.
Yeah,
like,
come here.
This is NA. This isn't AA. And I really think it's a way to break through a vulnerability. A lot of us are so like, we're vulnerable, but we don't want to show it. Early in sobriety. And I think NA, when you're coming from, those streets. Alcoholics, they're not dealing with the streets. They're going to a liquor store, they're buying their booze, and they're going home and they're isolating alone and drinking. When you're dealing with the opiates and you're dealing with the streets, you have to be a little bit of a harder person. And you have to have like a harder exterior, like a fucking tortoise, where you have to be really slow moving and protecting of your environment and your surroundings, because you can get robbed at any point because you've probably done some shady shit to somebody on this block, you know? And you don't have that kind of fear when you're with alcohol. So I think that's why NA does the hug, because it makes you like have to be vulnerable before you walk in the door. It makes you have to drop your tough guy exterior, tough girl exterior that you wore as a mask on the streets. You're in a safe place now. Give me a hug and sit the fuck down. Grab a coffee.
Oh yeah.
And it worked. I was never a tough guy to begin with. But I've seen some of the, biggest, like, biker dudes. Like, NA always seems to have, like, the bikers in recovery, and they're all these, like, old meth heads that are, like, in biker gangs back in the day that now have, like, recovery clubs, and they just show up all on their bikes. Yeah, man. And I see them hugging each other and, like, where the hell am I? Like, these guys are Yeah, but those were some of the, like, best meetings, though, because NA,
hell yeah.
I liked how in your face they are. I liked how direct. Yeah, and that's the way I talk. Like, if you ever sit in my meetings and you ask me a question and it has to do with yourself and I can give you an answer, then I'm going to be extremely real with you and extremely raw. Because this isn't, like, mental health is not something that we should, like, mince words about. You know? And, that's why we call them mental health check-ins and not, addiction meetings. Because it does all tie to mental health. My problem wasn't that I drank. My problem or used. My problem was that I used drinking or alcohol as solutions to problems.
Yep.
So that's why we call them mental health check-ins, because those are the problems we're trying to avoid so that we don't want to use or drink anymore.
So don't go down that path.
Because like everyone has, not everyone, but I think a lot of people that are addicts have trauma in their background.
Hell yeah, dude.
So that needs to be addressed in sobriety, because if it's not, then it's going to give us a reason to get high or drunk again the minute it comes up.
Yeah, I learned you cannot bury things. Like today, I do not bury things. I put everything out there. I drop my ego, and I'm vulnerable as I need to be in a situation.
Yeah, for sure. Because if not, you're only hurting yourself. Like it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to feel bad. It's okay. Like, if things aren't going your way, because guess what? Shit can turn around again, and it will. Just be patient. Like,
swear, man.
I never thought I would have 3 years, and I'm sure, like, how did you feel even at 1 year?
I couldn't believe it, man. It was just mind-blowing. But, like, the beginning of my sobriety, there wasn't really much to it. would just go day to day and just doing the same thing. I would just ride the wave and go with the breeze. And eventually, man, life just became stagnant, and I was just doing the same thing over and over again, and just life was getting down. So that's when I decided to, probably about a year ago, maybe a little bit under a year ago, is when I made a self-inventory list of myself, wrote everything out, and yeah, it changed a lot once I done that.
Okay, so you did a 4th step.
Yeah, basically. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So was that your first time doing that then?
Yeah, it was my first time, and I heard people saying that, a whole bunch of good things from it, and I wasn't, really thinking much would come from it, but when I wrote it, much didn't come from it, but once I went back to it and actually read it, and
you read it to somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, that's the 5th. That's the 5th. That's the next.
Yeah, I'm a little confused on the steps. It's been a while.
Yeah. 4th is writing the list, and 5th is talking to somebody else about the list. You talk to somebody else.
Okay. Yeah. I never did finish the steps. I think I got to that one, and that's when I was in Florida is when I originally started the steps. But when I got back, the time that we're talking about now is when I went through the list.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, I love the steps, and I talk about it all the time. Even though we're not AA or NA, I think the steps can be used for anything.
Hell yeah.
Just replace
take
the
that
word
word out and
alcohol.
put something else.
Yep. Because whatever that is making you unmanageable, just do it on that. Because the rest of the steps are about how to be a human, not really anything else.
Yeah, it's not going about addiction, really, per se.
No, and I'm, because, like, I also, appreciate, like, the, like, amends. We were talking about yesterday a lot about, like, making amends, and how, like, sometimes it's hard to make amends to certain people because they make it hard for you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like I want to apologize, make amends to you, but every time I go to do it, you say something that makes me just like, you know what? You don't need to hear this yet. We're gonna wait another 6 months.
Yep, been there, man.
And and then I had like an old timer, and he was just like, yeah, but you remember, people can pass away at any point, and then you gotta live with not being able to say something when you could have. Damn it, man. I hate when you make it.
Damn it, you got me.
Yeah, I probably will say something to him eventually. I'm willing to. I'm willing. But
yeah, and then I've had those ones, I make amends, and they just don't accept it. You tell them you're sorry for this, and this, and go over it, and then, they're kind of just like, fuck you. And I've been in that once or twice, and you just gotta accept it and just keep moving. Like, I look at it as I tried. It wasn't someone that I'm really close with, but it was someone I'd done wrong to a lot. So I tried to make amends, and I was sincere as I could. So I felt like I put it all out there, so that was good enough. I understand that everybody can't take the apology.
Yep, for sure. How long did it take into you being sober this time around for you to be able to like be around your kid again?
Well, actually, what happened was I had to go to court when she wasn't letting me see my son with the Christmas gifts. A couple months after that went by, and this was when I basically getting everything together. So I went and got a lawyer, and then got rights for my son that way.
Okay, so you had already had a little bit of sobriety, but you had to go through the... Okay.
But it was one of those things, like, I could have took her away, and I don't know how I would have showed, I'm fit to her. So I was like, we're just, take this to the courts and, just let them handle it.
Yeah.
So everything's right.
Yeah, and at least now you have some more time, so I'm sure you have some more rights. Like...
Yep.
So that's good, I mean...
Yeah, and now, like, my relationship with my son's mother is beautiful. We co-parent great. She's got a boyfriend who's dad as well, and I love them all.
Awesome.
I couldn't ask for something more. Like, I've worked so hard to get this relationship with her, and now it's here. Like, this is what I dreamed of. And it's so great.
Good. Yeah, because you want a relationship with your kid, and you want to be able to be cordial with her. You weren't trying to be married to her anyway, so you're okay with her being with somebody else because that's life. Like,
Mhm.
we all should be with somebody, like, you know. So, yeah, that's
I
cool,
look
man.
at it, it's just another guy to be around my son when I'm not there, teach him things that he should be taught. So
Yeah,
completely cool.
yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, we co-parent too. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm his stepdad. That I came in his life when he was 5. You know,
Oh, hell
and we get along with his dad, and like, for example, like, I'm never gonna be able to teach him how to ride a bike because I don't know how. You know.
right.
But now his dad can handle that shit. Or his mom.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's plenty of people now that can help out. But I have also the good thing is that it gives a good balance too of different, like, advice too. It gives more people to give the kid advice and help him out. So, like, right now he just started 2nd grade, this week. So, what are your kids going to kindergarten?
First
1st grade?
and goodness, he's got behavior issues. So I've already received like I told you earlier, I've received a phone call from the principal earlier, and a couple more last week. So it's basically all of us just getting on the same page and figuring out what's going to work for him is where we're at now.
Now, that just reminded me, I'm ADHD. Did your dad still in addiction, or is your dad never an addict, or you said you took pills from him, so?
Yeah, so back when I was younger, maybe 15, he fell off a ladder and got real hurt, so he was prescribed pain medicine. He was prescribed that for years, and then from talking to him now, he stated basically that they took the script away from him and he didn't have anything, so he'd go off the street and get pain pills. But when I went to my first rehab, what I knew is my dad was just using benzos and pain pills. When I was in the second rehab in Florida, I got a call that he overdosed on heroin. And then that kind of started his journey with heroin. And after my grandpa passed away in September of 2019, my dad got, excuse me, he was arrested for driving without a license. And he's done it so many times that he spent about a year and a half in the penitentiary over it. So now he's out. He's been out for a couple months, and he's doing great. He's trying to, make his amends with me and my sister with the wrongs that he did and him not showing up. So, that's something I can't hold against him because I know how that is, and I was in those shoes, but my son was just younger is the difference. So,
yeah, exactly. It sounds like your dad, it sounds like he was living with his dad, was close as hell with his dad.
Oh,
if he's living with his dad at that age, then they're very close. Mm-hmm. And then, did your grandpa die suddenly?
Yeah, so it was...
Okay, so it wasn't like a slow cancer where he was expecting it.
Was cancer, but it was, I can't think of the word. It was just real fast.
Yeah, progressive.
Yeah.
Yep, so, like, all of a sudden, like, they weren't expecting it to be that fast. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that makes sense that he would, kind of go off the deep end even more, Well, especially if he might have been just doing pills, and then even with your grandpa's diagnosis, it might have even set your dad into heroin.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's usually some kind of trigger that makes you want to step it up. Usually, not all the time, but, like, somebody once asked me, like, how come I only sniffed them and I never smoked them and or never shot anything? And I simply just, I was addicted to sniffing. The ritual, like, I wanted the ritual of breaking something up and doing the whole thing. And, like, I had people take videos and pictures of their dick and sex and all that, and I had videos on my phone of me snorting lines.
Right, and that's the shit that get me off,
Yeah, like, seriously, like, I go through my Snap history, I'm like, oh my God, like, look at all these, like, things in my, like, saved that I would save, like, bragging, like, look at these 4 lines. They're huge, and I'm about to take them down in a second, like, and I could.
So cool.
I know, like, my biggest claim to fame was my McDonald's straw. Like, I would always have the McDonald's straws because they were the fattest ones. And I would drop my pills right into the straw. And just full-size straw, bend it in half, and I would drop it in, and then chew the outside. They would all break up into powder inside, extend the straw, and,
I've never heard of that. Does that make sense?
But I would do that while I was driving, because I would drive a lot.
Ah.
So this way, because I broke all my CD cases, over the years, like doing them off a CD case is bullshit. That shit just breaks, and you just get everything. Yeah, yeah. So, but I would just do that instead, and yeah, man, like that's the insanity. The insanity is that I was more dangerous on the road without drugs. Like, I would be driving in Philly traffic and withdrawing so bad and needing to be like to vomit while I was driving in traffic. That's not really safe. But
no.
if I railed 430s, then I was wide awake and I was good to go.
Right, on the road.
Yeah.
And then you get that mindset, like, now I'm a better person when I have the drugs. I can do this, this, and this, and when I don't, I can't do this, this, and this. So it's like you're making these beliefs in your head, but really they're just beliefs.
I think the scariest thing though is with Xanax. Again, Xanax is always. The last time I remember even doing Xanax was I was driving my 2-hour drive, and I was on the PA Turnpike. And I was driving up to Philly to go over to Jersey, and I noticed the signs. I always pay attention to like mile markers, you know what I mean, to know how far I am away. And I'm like, okay, I'm 30 miles from the exit. So, and I drive an old Crown Vic, so I drive an old cop car, so I'm always cruising. And I was like, I'll be there in about 20 minutes, like off the exit at least. And then I came to, and I saw the mile marker, and I was 30 miles past the exit.
Oh, shit.
So I blacked out for 45 minutes while doing a windy turnpike going 90 miles per hour, dude.
Damn.
I don't know how. Like, I literally, like, you come to, from a blackout and just, like, driving along, like, I'm, like, looking. Like, I am driving, and I noticed, like, holy shit, I'm way past my exit now. And, yeah, I mean, I was like, all right, I can't do Xanax and drive ever again. Like,
yeah, that's a curse of them.
Because I always blacked out, always done dumb shit, always been irresponsible, always got caught. Like, I was never getting caught when I was high on perks, but as soon as I was on Xannies, everyone's calling me out for being high. Yeah.
You pull out your pockets and you got all this stuff. You don't know where it came from. You're like, where did this come from?
And the craziest thing is like, I would do like 150 milligrams of Percocet, like Oxy, but it's only 2 milligrams of those motherfuckers that make you lose control.
God.
Yeah, like, you need like, a couple hundred of Oxy, but just to the Xanax, only needs like 1 or 2 milligrams. The first time I got them, I'm like, I don't know, what do I need, 10 of them? They're only 1 milligram a piece? I'm going to need 10 of these things? They're like, no, it's not the same as, no, it's not the same kind of milligram. I'm like, okay, I trust you. So you don't go to meetings anymore, though? Going back on topic. Okay. Was it COVID? Did it slow things down, or was it just you got uninterested, or?
I basically got more interested with myself and what I can do to change. So what I would basically do is audit my time. By audit my time, I'm meaning what am I doing throughout the day that's not serving me in a way? How much time am I spending on my phone? How much time am I, just spending doing stupid shit? So I would figure out what that is, and the next day I would, instead of being on my phone, I might go work a puzzle. I might do something that's going to give me some knowledge where I can execute some action. Something that's going to put me in a better space. So that's one of the first things I started doing, and I basically just got addicted to it, addicted to just making myself a better person. So I strive, just to be a culture of progress within myself, be better than I was yesterday, last month, last year. Just keep trying to get a little bit better each day than I was the day before.
Yeah, exactly. That's, it's about becoming whole again, because we were like empty and shallow of a people before. And, with pretty much nothing to live for. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't feel like I had anything to live for towards the end.
No.
And, you can say kids and all that, but that's all well and good when you can see them. But you can't see your kids when you're in addiction because no one wants you to see your kids. You barely even want your kids to see you at that point. So who does need me? Why
Right,
should
you
I
get
be
paid
here?
for fucking.
Yeah, why should I be here? No one needs me around anyway.
Yep.
So, and at least now you know that you're worth something, and that obviously, you're good enough with and staying with your kid that the principal calls you when your kid gets in trouble.
Right, like.
But you're on the list. You're on the list for them to call.
Exactly. Years ago, that would not have been the case. I would have not have been able. You could have not have counted on me for anything. And now I'm just so reliable and always open with my son. Like, if he needs something, I'm there. I'm going to get it.
Yeah, that's awesome. The fact that you're on the call list, for an issue, and that you could answer that call and be relied on, to be there. That's, I'm sure, that I'm sure your ex feels great about that now. Not having to feel like she's by herself and doing this all alone. Now she's got two guys to help her.
Yeah, like a little example, I had to go pick up my son from school last Friday because some stuff was going on, and I was upset at first because he's not doing what he's supposed to. I'm talking to him on the phone, he's not doing what he's supposed to, not listening to me. And as I'm driving up to school, it hits me like, yeah, I'm upset, but if I was in my active addiction, I wouldn't even been able to be in this situation. So I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful to be here and to be able to go get my son when he's bad. His mom can count on me now, and it just feels amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing because before it would have been like her cursing you the entire time of going to pick him up. You would have been the bad guy in the narrative, because let's be real, when it's when I got in trouble in the school, they didn't call my mom. You know what I mean? They called my dad. So, yeah, exactly. They want to make sure the dad knew, when it was bad. So, I get that. And the fact that before she had to be the one, as a single mom, was he in daycares and shit like that too? And she had to get phone calls at daycares hey, he's being bad in daycare today. Can you do something about this, or can you come get him? Because I doubt it just started this year, right?
Definitely not. Definitely been ongoing.
Yeah, so at least now you're not the bad guy in her narrative when, and
right.
Kids acting out, I'm sure it's confusing too for him, and it is what, you guys will work on it. You guys are working on it, and you're co-parenting it, and that's what's important for him,
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's my first child, so, to be honest, of course, I'm going to fail from time to time and not know what I'm doing, but those failures are really not considered failures to me. They're more of a learning lesson. I can learn from that, pick that, not to do that next time,
Yeah, and even as you get older too, especially once you get over 30, you're really going to realize our parents were really just trying to figure this out as they went along too.
Right, they're just doing their best.
They were doing the best with what they had, and they didn't have Google when they had us. They didn't,
no. I can only imagine.
They had to actually read the books and show up. And,
different game, different ball game.
And you actually had to answer a phone and be home to answer a phone, and not because there wasn't
no cell phone.
Yeah. So you do realize that the more you go, and you give them a break and kind of you give them a pass,
Yeah.
Especially how old were you when you started noticing your dad was just doing not drugs but taking pills every day?
Was that maybe older? 14 or 15. I probably didn't know exactly that he was using, but he'd be gone all night and would come home 2 or 3 in the morning, and my mom and him would argue. So kind of knew something was up, but for me actually knowing that he was using drugs, it was probably about maybe even 20.
But they were together when you were 14 or 15 still, your parents?
Yeah. So they was together for years, and then basically what took them breaking up was me saying something to my mom. She wasn't happy. My sister wasn't happy. But my mom just wanted to make sure we was all on the same page. And once I told her I wasn't happy, then she ended up splitting up and getting her own place.
Are you older than your sister or younger?
I'm the youngest. I got an older sister and an older brother.
Oh, okay. So you're the youngest of three then. What are
Yes.
you, I'm the oldest of three. What are your age differences?
My brother, he's 37, and my sister, she's 30.
Okay. Yeah,
So pretty close.
we're kind of similar. I'm 35, and then my brother's 31, gonna be 32, and my sister is 25. So we're all like in like
Real
that
similar.
same kind. Yeah. So it's definitely a different kind of dynamic when you have like that one gap though of years, like where two are closer in age, but one is a little bit, one is older. So
It's usually there's always that one in children of three.
yeah, exact. Now, yeah, exact. Cause are any of them addicts? Are your brother and sister?
My brother, he was real bad into meth and heroin.
Okay.
For many, many years. He was a tattoo artist, and he tattooed for most of his life going around.
Is that where you got?
Yeah, that's basically where I got all my ink. And yeah, he went to jail over something non-drug related, and then once he got out, he straightened up his life, and he's probably got about 3 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so
you both got some time then.
Yeah. So it's super nice to know, that my brother's in recovery too, and he's doing well, and it's just nice to see, someone else strive in recovery like that.
Yeah, I mean, I cliches, everyone hates them, but they're cliches for a reason because they do work. Like it works if you work it, and all that bullshit. Like it does. Like I hate to admit it. Yeah, yep. It's the truth though. Like,
yeah.
So that's I just didn't want to go back to AA because they don't like I use cannabis in my recovery, and I have a medical card. I went to a rehab that taught me how to use cannabis as a medicine in LA, called High Sobriety, and so I've been clean since. So, but AA didn't like that I talked about that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And they're really conservative in PA, and they even didn't like when I mentioned pills. Like you gotta say alcohol. You can't say pills.
Wow.
I'm like, yeah, I fucking drove 2 hours for alcohol. Okay.
Right.
Because there was no alcohol close by. It's the only alcohol I could find or trust. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, and now I'm afraid to relapse, honestly, because of fentanyl.
Oh, yeah, you never know. I mean, these days, like, when we was out using, fentanyl wasn't huge, but now it's an occurrence every day and everything.
Yeah, like 70,000 out of the 93,000 people that overdosed last year was fentanyl.
What?
Yep, 70 out of 93. So the other 23,000, they overdosed from benzos, alcohol, opiate, whatever. Like some of them were like barely any were just heroin, but 70 out of 93 is fentanyl related. Yeah, like I'm afraid because they're in pills, man. Like they're putting them in pills now.
Pressing in pills.
Yeah, like now, before 130 wouldn't kill me, but now it could.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not trying to go out on a relapse.
Right.
I know too many people.
That the last one will be, or the next one will be the last one,
Yeah, a guy I was close with, he used to always say, like right now we have a choice. Like right now I have a choice to not get high or not get drunk. But as soon as I do it, I lose that choice.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I get high again, I lost that choice. That I lose that power. And, yeah. So, and he actually did relapse. He relapsed after 18 months in his 40s and from meth. And he was my sober living manager.
Oh, shit.
At the time. He wasn't showing up for a couple days. It turns out I saw him in an NA meeting a few days later, when he was allowed back out again because he went into rehab again. And he was like, dude, as soon as I shot it, I went into instant psychosis. And it wasn't any better. Yep. And so, but I was talking to somebody else, and they were like, just because he relapsed doesn't mean his lessons that he taught you weren't valid.
True.
Just because he had a moment of, whatever, and he fucked up and he shot up again, doesn't mean that all the other stuff that he's said in the past that you've taken, it isn't like worthless now. Like that's all still very like good stuff. He wasn't thinking of those things when he got high. You know, when you know more than anybody, more than me, like relapse. Whenever you're relapsing, the last thing you're thinking of is all of the other bullshit that can keep you from stopping. Once you made up your mind,
it's a wrap.
Yeah, there's no talking you out of it. Oh, call your sponsor before you get high so you don't do it. Yeah, that's who I'm going to call before I relapse. Somebody to talk me out of it. No, you don't. Once you made up your mind,
that's the last thing you want to hear.
Yeah, you don't want to.
It's like once you get high in your head, you're already high.
Yeah, once you get high in your head. Yep. That is the truth. Because there's no talking you out of it. You know, I knew somebody that, he'd be like, yep, I wouldn't call my sponsor ever. I would hop on the bus and go right to the stop and go right to where I needed to get. Go right to the Starbucks that I knew I could use in their bathroom, and I'd be done. I had already had it all planned out before I even got on the bus.
Yep.
You know. So that's the insanity, man. It's, nice that we don't have to live that way anymore. It's nice that we have a choice now. It's nice that we get things back, get our families back. It sounds like you're starting to get yours now that your dad's out, and he's trying to do better. Your brother's got a few years. You got a few years. That's awesome, man. And you can see your son.
So everything's good. So with all that and everything that I've learned and been through all the relapse, I'm now in the process of making something like a class or a course on helping people in recovery who basically just live a stagnant life and, they want to get their soul filled, basically help them do that. So, I plan on doing a lot more service here within the next year and just going all in.
Yeah, there's a lot of like Facebook groups for that kind of thing too that you could do, or book. You could do even classes, like Zoom classes and shit. Or if you wanted to do something in person, it doesn't take much to get a small space together.
No, it don't.
And put some chairs around and throw a coffee machine out. Trust me, that's what you know what I mean? And then you promote it on Facebook, like, hey, we're here this day, and, make it a thing. Get your own community. It doesn't have to be AA. You can be your own community. I want to inspire people to do this, too, everywhere, and start your own kind of meetings. Everyone always talks about meetings, like, oh, I want to do that. I wish I could do this. You can.
Do it. You can. Yeah, man, like what you're doing is beautiful, man. It's amazing, and I think it's really great.
Thank you.
So cool.
Thank you. I love what I do here, that's for sure. That's why I spend so much time doing it, spend time doing podcasts to get even more stories out there.
And that's what makes our sobriety stronger, is helping others. What's that one behind you with the hedge?
This one?
Look like Mount Rushmore, yeah.
Yeah, that's the Mount Rushmore of comedians.
Oh, wow.
That's George Carlin as Washington, and then Seinfeld, and then Richard Pryor, and then Dave Chappelle.
Okay. Oh, wow, that's so cool. Hell yeah.
When I was in LA, I met an artist, a muralist named Muck Rock in AA. And she's done work for Dave Grohl even, you know what I mean? Like, she's like big, and like all of like these are her. In her front yard of Venice, she would just yeah, like she gave me my leg lamp and everything.
Hell yeah.
Like, we would hang out in her front yard in Venice and do a meeting, and then she would do tattoos.
That's cool.
And there's still meetings there there's 2 meetings a day in her front yard every single day, even though she's not even living there anymore. Yeah. She kept the place and made it into a recovery place.
Wow, that's powerful.
But, like, yeah, she's such a good painter, though, that she has that house in Venice, a studio in Venice, and a house in San Pedro. Like, and all she does is paint all day long. So that's how good she does. And so I had her paint me that, because, like, I used to do stand-up comedy, so, like, that's my Mount Rushmore of comedians. And I had her do that one. That's my higher power, Bill Murray.
Yeah, that's dope. That's what I thought that was.
I had Bill Murray as Jesus. Last year I hit her up and I was like, hey, I need a Bill Murray commission, but I want him like as Jesus, like that. She's like, hell yeah, that's awesome. I'm on it. Like, what age do you want him? Like, I was like, make it like Caddyshack years. She's like, okay.
That is so cool, man.
So yeah,
cool.
she'll be out here. She's doing a tour this fall where she tours the country. Dude, she's been out your way. She's huge in your city.
Is she?
Yeah, Muck Rock.
That sounds familiar.
Dude, she made the world news in Indianapolis a couple of years ago.
I'm gonna look her up when we get done. Muck Rock.
All one word. Indiana is like her. She's not even from there, but for some reason she is so popular in your state. Everyone.
What?
Yeah, if you just type in Indiana with her name, it's everywhere. Especially in your city. She was in the world news a couple of years ago because obviously, like, Larry Bird is like your savior in your state. You know what I mean? And someone had her do a Larry Bird fucking mural on the side of their house. And she added a bunch of tattoos because she does a thing called mucking it up, where she adds tattoos to like popular culture. So she had this. It was a giant. You can even Google it now. I don't care if you just type in Muck Rock and Larry Bird, and she had to go back out there and cover it up because Larry Bird was going to sue her.
What?
Yeah, because he's not a tattoo guy. So he didn't appreciate all the tattoos.
Oh. Is this the one you're talking about? Let me see if I can.
Yep, that's her. Yep, that was it. Yep, that's the one.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool.
Dude, she is all over. And actually, she got in trouble also because of a restaurant in your city. The restaurant, type in Muck Rock Bunnies.
You say bunnies?
Yeah, bunnies, like Bunnies. She does these bunnies all over the place, and a restaurant had her do it on the side of the restaurant, and it was near a school.
Is that it?
Yeah, and she had to go back out there, and she had to paint over it because the people were complaining because it was near a school. Yeah, I forget what restaurant it was. Muck Rock.
It was outside.
Restaurant. Because it made the paper and everything. The Indy Star. I'm looking. Oh, no, that's a different one. Oh, the Indy Star shows all the ones that she. That's the place right there. Because she ended up doing this.
Okay.
As like a fuck you, she put that instead.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
The Beholder, on the side of the Beholder restaurant. It's located on 10th Street.
Okay.
So yeah, all of these like Indiana is the Indy Star site. Is that where you're at?
Yep.
Dude, yeah, that's all. Isn't that crazy? All that work she did.
This is really nuts that I had no idea about this.
Yeah, so if you tag her on Instagram, she like reposts it all the time too. Like on her Instagram, her story is so fun to watch because you can see a painting happen. You see her show up to an empty wall and showing it. You see her fiance Kyle is always like recording for her while she's painting. They have 2 dogs, they're giant bloodhounds, and they hang out while she paints and shit. Definitely,
so cool.
Yeah. When you see it, you're gonna start noticing. Watch, now you're gonna see them everywhere. You're gonna hit me up.
Looking and seeing it.
Yeah, send me pictures.
Like, JD, I seen this, man.
Yeah, you got my shit now. Send me something, whatever you find in Muck Rock in the wild. Let me know, because I love seeing them, like, real life,
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely be on the lookout for sure. That's so cool.
Yeah, she'll be back through Indiana during the fall because that is her spot now. Because your state and your city has shown her so much love that she always ends up there for like a month. I swear, a year ago, she was stuck there for like a month. I was waiting on her to come through, and I didn't even see her because like she was like stuck there it was 2 years ago. She was stuck there for a month. Like, not even kidding. Like, she's like, dude, I'm trying to leave. I just keep getting more calls and more calls to do more work, and I can't leave the work. And I was like, I hear you. Yeah, so your city and your state have shown her the most love by far.
That is awesome to hear. That's great.
Yeah, so definitely let me know when you see that. I'm gonna let you go though. I'm gonna let you go though. So But it
All
was
right,
awesome,
man.
it was awesome talking to you, dude. It was
Yeah,
such a
JD,
fun time.
awesome to do well, man. And thanks for the opportunity of letting me come on here and speak, man. I greatly appreciate that, and I can't thank you enough.